Hello. Okay,
Hello?
these are working.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, how's it going? Good. Okay, so you've got David Feld and I here. I'm Nick Shaheen. We're going to talk about the new era of on-chain apps. So David and I work at Bankless. I work on partnerships, BD. David works as a writer on the Alpha team. And for the last year, we have done a show called Apps No Entrees. Has anybody seen this show? Good. Yeah, perfect. So we've done 35 episodes where we talk to different apps in crypto, different apps in the ecosystem to try and learn about what they've built, how they've built it, how they use the blockchain, where they're going. And we've learned a ton, right? There's so many apps out there. Some of them are doing well, some of them are not. Some are resonating, some are not. Some are working, some are not. But why should you listen to David and I, right? What do we bring here that might be interesting to you? We are not product builders per se. We are marketers, but what makes us unique is that we've tried so many apps. We've tried hundreds, 150, 200. How many apps have we tried, David?
I'd say that's an accurate number.
Somewhere in there. And we've talked to all these different app builders, and we, as users, as writers, as someone that builds partnerships, and as like a co-host of a show, we've learned a lot about what works, and we think that there are a bunch of takeaways of what you guys can build or how you can market what has been built based on what's been built already. And yeah, it's a really unique time for apps. I think that everybody's like, oh, this is the year where apps are finally going to take off. But the infrastructure is here, the ideas are here, there are new ways to do it, and we're going to talk about the different like archetypes that make it happen, and a few case studies of apps that have really made a mark on us and why. And so yeah, over to you, David.
Yeah, so overall to begin, what's enabling this shift to make it a great time to build apps are three core catalysts. One, newfound infra maturity. You have account abstraction, you have embedded wallets, you have native auth, you have L2s, particularly Base, which just overall provide a pretty sleek experience to using an app, which removes the multiple transactions, the confirmations, everything that was very much holding us back from a sort of quote-unquote Web 2 native experience last cycle. These can all be mixed and matched to create a series of different apps pretty quickly. Two, we have memes as design input. I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions on memes here, but overall, I think they have shown us very clearly where crypto's value lies in attention, social identity, and overall group rituals being formed on-chain. They're internet-native assets on the internet. It makes sort of perfect sense. And I think they also have fostered a fast-paced crypto-native activity that people keep coming back to day in and day out. Last cycle, we had DeFi yields, and that's sort of just like parking capital or moving capital to find the best place to park capital. But with memes, people are actively transacting nonstop, swapping tokens. And then three, mobile first. Crypto has finally gone mobile first. Usage has flipped to 63% of all crypto comes from mobile activity rather than desktop now.
That's a lot.
And mobile wallets continue to hit new all-time highs in overall usage. Overall, this is just a great foundation for actually building apps rather than just infrastructure that people can use on a day-to-day basis.
Next.
Together, overall, in the apps that we've seen, these three catalysts have sort of birthed three successful archetypes for apps that really retain users rather than just being a sort of flash in the pan. One, apps that build uniquely around memes, and what I mean by this is that they solve the problem of chaos for memes. Pump Fund has launched over 11 million tokens now, which is quite a lot. People are probably a little disappointed about no alt season. That's why. But to make sense of this chaos, apps that build uniquely around memes to lessen the noise, to lessen the potential loss of memes, and to lessen the degeneracy, we've seen those apps have a strong retention over months. Two, apps that provide novel speculation. What I mean by this is I think there's a very, sort of like the uncanny valley, there's a very fine line between financializing something new and over-financialization. I think crypto is slipping, especially with so many new fairly launched meme coins or different launch pads, into over-financialization, which can just feel really exhaustive and wear on the user, rather than actually provide a novel way to speculate. So shining stars here are really prediction markets. And then three are apps that soften crypto's default sort of PvP dynamic and introduce the illusion, or hopefully, and in a lot of cases, actually the reality of a collaborative online experience, which crypto promised us from the get-go, and really just having all trading, all speculation be in public. So we'll start with apps that really showcase this unique design around memes. One, obviously, heard some sounds in the audience. People probably know Axiom. It's a pretty well-rounded, unified trading terminal. And before I go into it, I just want to preface that while it's a shining star and a great example, the trading terminal sort of vertical definitely feels like it is sort of matured to a point where there are winners. Granted, Photon felt like that, then came Axiom, but Axiom's suite really feels like a product which has sort of reached the final stages of trading terminals. So be wary if you want to build another trading terminal, is all I'm going to say. But what Axiom does is it essentially bundles your wallet trackers, your Twitter trackers, your token analytics, your discovery, all into one single interface, as well as also have hyperliquid perps. So you really don't have to go anywhere else for trading. Everything's really smooth, one click, feels like no gas. And also they do lessen, so they're lessening the noise overall of memes to drive that home. And two, they're also lessening the loss because as you trade, you get some rewards back in Sol. Two, we have Purity. Purity Finance is not pictured on the screen, just because there's no space, nothing about, it's standing. But what it does is essentially just lets you batch close token accounts. So the architecture of Solana works as every time you get a token, you essentially have to put down a 0.002 Sol deposit to open that and hold that token in your wallet. And for people who are trading hundreds, thousands of memes on a weekly, monthly basis, if you were to batch close those accounts, let's say you close 100 accounts, that's 0.2 Sol back. 1,000 accounts, that's 2 Sol back. And this is lessening the loss. And also, I think what I want to call out for Purity is that they've done a really good job around sort of using memes as design input, again, to make these little things called Puries, which are these little animated characters that they have, which has formed a really tight user base around their app and kept people coming back again and again. And then 3, we have one of my favorites, which is called Lemon Drop, which I'd call it a self-imposed tariff on all trading. What you essentially do is you download the Lemon Drop extension and you tack on an additional transaction to any swap or transaction you make on Solana. Say, 50 cents, $1. I set that. I will buy $1 or 50 cents of Bitcoin with every buy and sell I make on Solana. So you're essentially dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin while you trade memes, lessening the degeneracy and actually owning something that will be worth value in longer than a week's time.
You said degeneracy. You said you weren't going to say degeneracy. Oh no. Okay, so I want to include this quote. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. David was like, you probably shouldn't include that, and based on the lack of any laughter in the crowd, I probably shouldn't have included an Office reference, American Office reference in Europe. But anyways, good artists borrow, great artists steal. I think this makes a lot of sense if you're in crypto, right? There are so many apps that we've seen that are just like evolutions or carbon copies of past apps. And maybe it was the time of the market, maybe it was the new infrastructure that's been implemented, but now it's working. Now it makes a lot of sense. A really good example of that in the novel speculation bucket of the 3 archetypes is Polymarket, right? So I imagine all of you have heard of it, all of you have used it. Polymarket wasn't brand new. It wasn't a new idea. There had been previous attempts at prediction markets, but it got the timing right. It got the infrastructure right. Like all these contracts, I don't know if you know this, but all these contracts are built with NFTs. So technically, NFT summer may have died, but NFTs are still a part of what I think is the biggest app in crypto. And it allows you, for those who haven't used it, it allows you to speculate on things that are going on in the real world. It became the #1 app in America in the news sector around the election and allowed you to speculate on who was going to win the election. People were going there to find out the live results of that speculation, which allowed them to call the American election before it was even fully called on like a lot of the news outlets. And yeah, this is a great example of how, you can speculate in a novel way. It's intellectually stimulating, but it's also not like super brand new, right? They built something that looks great, that was a previous idea, and again, great artist steal. Also within the novel speculation is something that's been built from the polymarket idea. I know you're a big fan of Ponder. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, it's just a completely different kind of prediction market, but Ponder is a small-scale prediction market on Farcaster, where essentially the whole point of it is to, you're presented with an option, let's say, what's the best primary color? Red, blue, or yellow?
Blue.
And your bet is or the strategy there is to guess or predict what everyone else will say. So you're essentially looking for the majority's answer. And I really like Ponder. I think, I would never have pictured myself as a daily Farcaster user 3-4 months ago. Now I am. I'd attribute it all to Ponder, really because they have made this speculative game, which doesn't feel like speculation almost. I don't know. It's not a new, fairly launched meme coin. And as I said, it's not a new form of perps. It doesn't feel over-financialized. It really just feels like a quick sort of daily poll where you're relying on your intuition to figure out, what the majority will answer for these questions. There's a wide variety, as you can see on the screen. People ask anything. A big one which caused a bit of controversy was like, who's going to win the war in Ukraine, or like, are political assassinations valid at certain points, right? And it's just interesting to see what people think everyone else will pick. And it's also really low stakes bets, right? You can only bet up to $10, as low as 50 cents. Payouts are also pretty small. They can range from like a cent to $40, depending on the market and the divisiveness of it. But overall, I think it's a really shining example of novel speculation in a way that does not feel overly financialized and exhaustive to the user.
You said we weren't going to get political, and you just went and brought up politics again. Has anybody used, do y'all know what Farcaster is when we bring up Farcaster? Show of hands. Okay, about half. Nice. Okay, I won't go into too much detail about what it is, but again, it's combining social, financial, something fun, something mobile. This isn't entirely novel. It's novel speculation, but it's not entirely novel, right? Like Polymarket was really similar, but this is using a similar idea and building it into Farcaster, which is new infrastructure that allows it to be even more social and allows the transactions to happen really quickly. And then the last bucket, the last archetype is group play. Another show of hands. Has anybody played Crypto the Game? Okay, we've got one. Nice. Okay, good. I will explain this one then. So Crypto the Game is like Survivor, but it's gone online. So you put in, I think it was 0.1 ETH to join the game. That goes into the vault, which is the prize. There's a 150K prize for this season, which was season 3. And you get split up into tribes at the beginning of the game, and each day is a different contest that you try to solve or you compete in as a team, and the winner is immune for that day. The loser has to vote out players on their team. And so every day a bunch of players get voted out until the last day, where all those folks, if you know Survivor, all the folks that have been voted out are then on the jury, and then they vote for who the winner is. And like Polymarket and Ponder, this isn't a brand new idea. It uses infrastructure in crypto, right? There are NFTs as your introduction, as like your pass to be in the game. It uses USDC to pay. And then there's like crypto games that make it crypto, but it really is just Survivor, and it's gone online. So again, using a good idea, taking it into a different realm, a different like use case now that the infrastructure is here. And it's fun, right? Like all these teams go into separate Telegram groups, they compete with each other, they collaborate, you don't know who's your friend, who's your foe, you don't know if you're gonna get backstabbed that day or if your team is like telling the truth that they're not gonna vote for you. And it's a blast. It's mobile and it's a blast. Highly recommend if you wanna do something that takes up your entire life for 10 days. And then the last piece, the last group play example, okay, has anybody used PvP Trade? Nice, we've got one. Okay, good. We're talking about new apps. Okay, so you can long and short trades with your friends and foes. Kind of like Crypto the Game, you go into a Telegram chat with all of your friends, and what you see on the right are a bunch of different options of what you can do. They use Hyperliquid as the liquidity and all the tokens that you can find, and you can long or you can short or you can copy trade, or you can counter trade. You can see some of David's trades that didn't go so well. He lost, I think, like just over $2 here. But it's cool. Like the visuals are great, right? Like you can see that the long that you just opened is either up or down, and you can close it, and you can see like what your friends have done, and you can copy them. And there's a leaderboard, right? So you can like find out who's made the best trades. And again, this is combining new infrastructure. Hyperliquid's pretty new. Like everybody using Telegram is fairly new, but it's using like old activities that we've done, right? Like we've been longing and shorting. Well, but I don't know if we've all been longing and shorting. I actually hope we haven't been longing and shorting for a long time, but we've all been trading for a long time, and this just took those ideas and made it something new and something social and something mobile and something fun.
Yeah, and it really also, just to add one point on to Nick's summary, is that it shows, obviously I feel like there's a lot of annoyance with, people being like, oh, I'm going long and then shorting, especially like sort of larger capital players. And this just really puts it all out in public. And despite the name, it's a pretty sort of player versus environment experience, because with everyone showcasing their trades all the time, it just breeds an atmosphere in these chats of, why am I doing this? I'm showing this to you. Obviously, I'll talk about it. And it's just a much nicer air towards trading than, sort of being locked into your 18 different monitors on your own. And it's you versus the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, some of the big takeaways, we talked about the buckets, the archetypes. Some of the big takeaways for me is like, borrow some of this stuff. Like you don't have to come up with something brand new. It doesn't have to just be like brand new tech infrastructure. Like if you're building apps or if you're marketing apps, use some of the ideas that you've seen out there, and definitely like use these products. Like all these ideas have built from past ideas because they're in the arena. They're trying new things, and they're learning like what works and what doesn't work personally. And then usually that's a pretty good sign of what's going to work for all the other users out there.
Yeah. To wrap that up, I think that's a pretty apt summary. Definitely please take from these, take from the archetypes, know the catalysts. Those will really help you. And we have about 3 little less minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we will answer.
Yeah, any questions out there? Anything? You see one? Okay.
On these apps, can any tokenized vehicle be traded, used, commented? I mean, is it open to all tokens? On these apps like Ponder?
Which app are you referring to?
I mean, anyway, it's...
Ponder
I'll
uses
get right
USDC.
to the short. We tokenize sovereign bonds, and we're looking for new ways to bring them into the sphere. And some of these apps seem to be a good, or platforms seem to be good, like Ponder and Paul. Would they take financially, like stable bonds?
Some maybe. Like if you get on Hyperliquid, then those.
We're on Hyperliquid.
Great. Then it would be on PvP Trade. I imagine it'd be on Axiom. Maybe Purity. If they're on Solana, then you can use Lemon Drop. I don't think Polymarket is relevant, but yeah, then it would make sense for Lemon Drop. I think my one piece of advice is reach out to them, see if it makes sense. There's always a good opportunity to make a new connection and then find out what you need to change or what you need to offer to get onto these apps. And maybe what you learn is that they don't have the capability of offering your app, and then boom, there's a new idea for you. Build an app where something like PvP Trade happens, right, but within the products that you have. So
you would reach out to Hyper?
Yeah, I'd reach out to all of them. Can't hurt. Yeah, send a DM, send an email. They might not get back to you, but and then try the apps. See if you can find those tokens, and if you see them there already, which I think you would for PvP Trade and Lemon Drop, then voila.
Cool. Thanks.
Yes, we have one more here.
Hey, aside from Polymarket, it's been 15 years, trillions of dollars invested in all this. Aside from Polymarket, which does seem to have at least some function, is it not a bit depressing to you that after 15 years we're talking here about like, oh, maybe you can click on this poll in the morning, or like, hey, this thing will clear your wallet. Isn't that a bit sad on some level?
You want to answer? Sure,
Not personally. I don't know. I think it just depends on your time horizon, your scale, where you're coming from. I think these are just apps that are like, as someone who grew up on the internet and may not have the sort of same I don't know, just viewpoint overall. I feel like, particularly around like crypto, I think there's a lot of more unique ways to sort of coordinate and also just experience the internet online. Also make some money just in a sort of passive way. Yes, these apps aren't going to save thousands of lives, but I do think they're still adding value. And I think a lot, especially in this day and age, there's a lot to be said about bringing people together and bringing joy to things that people are already doing on the internet. And I think a lot of these apps are very successful in that. And I think the internet is going to continue to get a bit more stale. And it's good to sort of, have the mic pass to Nick so you can finish up the answer.
Okay, just quick because I know we have like 10 more seconds, but we do have some apps that are really successful. Like Bitcoin as a store of value is taking off, and that is technically an application. Stablecoins are truly going to change a lot of things over the next like 10 years, and we're already seeing that, and that's worth spending a lot of money on. And then Polymarket's a great example. There are going to be others, but yes, it's sad that we don't have like 1,000 new apps that are all really exciting. But what you see in tech is that like there are maybe like 2 or 3 that really make sense, and it was worth all the different attempts that failed. And it's hard to be in the midst of all of those failures, but what you get at the end are applications that really make a lot of sense. But yeah, if you want to find us online, those are our X accounts. And thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for speakers and for asking the questions.